Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. A man is arrested in California following shooting deaths of 7 farm workers believed to be Chinese Americans. Locally, city residents rush to keep warm as the mercury plunges. And worshippers flock to the Chokung Temple in Sha Tin. The U.S. state of California has been rocked by another mass killing. One man was arrested after 7 farm workers, said to be Chinese Americans, were shot dead in 2 places near San Francisco, Sha Tin reports.
The shooting attacks occurred at a mushroom farm and a nearby trucking company on the outskirts of Half Moon Bay, a coastal city about 40 kilometers south of San Francisco. 4 victims were found dead at the farm, and another person was taken to hospital in critical condition. 3 more bodies were discovered a few kilometers away. All the victims were said to be Chinese American farm workers. The suspect, Chun-Li Zhao, was pinned to the ground and arrested when he drove himself to the parking lot of the local police station. The 67-year-old is a resident of the city and worked at one of the 2 facilities. Police believe Zhao acted alone and are trying to find the motive for the shooting. He reportedly had a semi-automatic pistol and is said to be cooperating with the authorities. 3 of the victims were shot inside their trailers, and officers believe that children might have witnessed the crime.
Gun violence in this country is at completely unacceptable levels. It's really hit home tonight. There are simply too many guns in this country, and there has to be a change. This is not an acceptable way for modern society to live and conduct its affairs.
The shootings happened while California Governor Gavin Newsom was meeting with the families of 11 people killed last weekend in Monterey Park, 600 kilometers southeast of Half Moon Bay. Sachin Kadpi, HKIBC.
Police investigating the earlier shooting believe that domestic disputes and jealousy were the motives behind the attack. One Chinese citizen was among those killed in Monterey Park. Here's Sachin Kadpi again.
Flowers were left outside the Star Ballroom Dance Studio in Monterey Park, California, where a lone gunman went on a shooting spree during a Lunar New Year celebration last Saturday. 11 people were killed and 10 wounded. Most of them were in their 60s. Chinese nationals were among the dead in the shooting in the largely Asian American city. One of the victims was 65-year-old Mimi Nan, who was seen dancing in a video just before gunshots rang out.
I saw her on Saturday a couple hours before she went to dance. She was already done dancing and about to leave, and she got into her car and unfortunately, didn't go far.
The gunman, identified as 72-year-old Hu Can Tran, then went to the Lai Lai Ballroom and Studio in the nearby town of Alhambra, but was confronted by Brandon Say, who worked at the family-run dance hall.
I was able to pull the gun away from him, shove him aside, create some distance, point the gun at him, intimidate him, shout at him and say, "Get the hell out of here, I'll shoot, get away, go."
Say disarmed the gunman but was unaware of the earlier shooting. Hours later, Tran shot himself as police surrounded his van. He survived on odd jobs and was known to some of his victims. Tran was divorced from his wife, whom he first met at Star Ballroom and frequented the place. Detectives believe that jealousy and domestic disputes were the most likely motives for the shooting. A candlelight vigil was held at Monterey Park City Hall as the city tried to come to terms with one of the worst mass shootings in California. Sachin Kadpi, HKIBC.
Here in Hong Kong, a cold snap gripped the city today, prompting people to wrap up properly before venturing out. They will have to hang on to their winter outfits as tomorrow is expected to be even colder. Macy Mock reports.
Puffer jackets were popular at the Hong Kong Promenade as people huddled for warmth. The temperature fell to as low as 13 degrees this morning, a drop of between 4 and 6 degrees from yesterday.
A cold front has moved across the coastal areas of Guangdong last night. Its associated intense northeast monsoon started to affect the region gradually. That's why the temperature dropped significantly earlier today.
The observatory issued the strong monsoon signal at 3 a.m. and followed up with the cold weather warning at noon, when the temperature across the city ranged from 14 to 17 degrees. It was colder in some other places, where the mercury plummeted to single digits. In Tai Mo Shan, it plunged to 3.6 degrees this morning. Winter woolies will be needed in the next couple of days.
It will be cold tomorrow morning. Temperatures in the urban area will fall to around 10 degrees, and it will be a couple of degrees lower in the new territories. Even though temperatures will rise slightly on Thursday, it will still be rather cool in the morning.
The Center for Health Protection urged the elderly and those with chronic illnesses to wear warm clothes and ensure an adequate calorie intake in their diets. People have been advised to avoid alcoholic beverages as they accelerate the loss of body heat. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
A search has continued in the waters off Tuen Mun for a 66-year-old man who failed to return from a fishing trip. Boats and a helicopter were deployed in the search this morning. The man set off from Lung Ku Tan yesterday morning, but did not return home at night. A friend who saw him set sail on his own described him as an experienced angler who has been fishing in the area for 20 years. Nearly 27,000 people have visited the Cho Kung Temple in Sha Tin to mark the third day of the Lunar New Year. Most of them prayed for the pandemic to be over soon. Macy Mock has the story.
According to tradition, the third day of the Lunar New Year is when arguments are likely to occur. To avoid quarrels that may spoil the festivities, many people tend to stay home. Or they visit places of worship, especially the Che Kung Temple in Sha Tin. By noon, over 10,000 people packed the venue, filling it to capacity. Worshippers lit incense sticks to pray for a healthy year. This man who held several incense sticks wished the pandemic will be over. This woman hoped that the economy will improve after COVID sent the city into a tailspin. Many people bought windmills as they are believed to bring good luck when they are spun. This woman noted that more people visited the temple this year than last year. She hopes by spinning the windmill, her family will find harmony and good health. Another woman said after praying to Che Kung, a general in the Song dynasty, she doesn't expect arguments to occur. She wished all COVID measures, including the mask mandates, will be lifted. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Punters celebrated the Lunar New Year by splashing out $2 billion at the Shatin racecourse. It was the first time since 2020 that the Jockey Club opened its doors to the public on the third day of the Lunar New Year, and over 79,000 people accepted the invitation. The money placed on bets was the highest for a Chinese New Year race meeting since the handover. Financial Secretary Paul Chan officiated in a ceremony before the races began. Racegoers were given souvenirs, so even those who lost their bets did not go home empty-handed. The number of new COVID cases today dropped to its lowest since July. There were 1,987 infections, including 37 imported cases. 36 more patients succumbed to COVID, while 25 are under intensive care. Overseas, civilian activists, backed by a group known as Fortify Rights, have filed charges in Germany against Myanmar's military rulers, accusing them of genocide and war crimes.
Members of the military junta should not feel safe from justice in this world, and they must be held accountable. The military junta is not the government of Myanmar. It's a criminal enterprise and will be treated as such. Senior General Min Aung Hlaing is leading Myanmar on a dark path to nowhere. He and others responsible for these atrocity crimes must be held accountable.
In 2021, the military overthrew the elected government led by Aung San Suu Kyi. Peaceful protests against the army fizzled out after a crackdown on demonstrators, resulting in a large number of casualties. The generals are also accused of persecuting Myanmar's Muslim Rohingya minority and involvement in genocide. New Zealand's outgoing Prime Minister was given a rousing reception on her last official engagement. Jacinda Ardens sprang a surprise last week by announcing her resignation, saying she was exhausted after more than 5 years in office. Her last duty was a visit to the home of an indigenous Maori religious movement. She was accompanied by Chris Hipkins, who will be sworn in as her successor tomorrow. During her premiership, 42-year-old Ardern faced a series of challenges, including the COVID crisis.
And I want you to know that I leave with a greater love and affection for Aotearoa New Zealand and its people than when I started. And I didn't think that was possible. So my final words are this. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the greatest privilege of my life.
Sweden's bid to join NATO hangs in the balance after Turkey said its approval isn't guaranteed. The threat by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan came after protesters burnt a copy of the Quran outside the Turkish embassy in Stockholm. Sweden and Finland applied to join the Western Alliance after Russia invaded Ukraine, but they need the green light from all current members, including Turkey. The Quran burning in Sweden triggered protests in various Arab capitals. In Baghdad, security forces dispersed crowds demanding the closure of the Swedish embassy in the Iraqi capital. On to the weather now. Influenced by northeast monsoon, expect a brisk cold morning tomorrow, but fine and dry through the day. Temperatures will range between 10 and 15 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Tuesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Azam Khan. Thanks for watching. Good night.